The key element that I focused on starting a business is that you need to have a lot of drive. I didn't want it to be a small company. I want to be in the top 250 PR companies in the world. I want to be this, I want to be that.
And where did that come from? Was that just this inner calling?
I was 35 when I started the business. I knew that I have 10 years, 15 years. So when you fail, when you stumble, when you crack, just tell yourself, this is a lesson. This is a stepping stone to something big.
Meet Jacob Puthenparambil, a mentor at Singapore Management University and founder of Redhill.
From spearheading major telecom initiatives to nurturing tomorrow's top startups, Jacob is not just part of the change, he's leading it.
So that was a wake-up call. And he said, just try to stop drinking, because I used to be petrified that...
Welcome to the show, Jacob, and
Thank
welcome
you.
to Australia again.
Thank you for having me.
So we've been good friends ever since I joined EO. It's such a great business community. Get to meet amazing people like yourself, who's not even in Australia. You're visiting from Singapore. But yeah, I love that I discovered that you were a Christian as well, and you're a high roller business owner, and that's why you're on the show. But what did you bring for our show and tell this for this segment?
I didn't bring a thing. I brought a person. I brought my daughter, Mary.
Okay.
She's right here. Come.
All right.
Come. Come here.
Hi,
That's
Mary.
it.
Good
Hi,
to
Lee.
see you.
Nice to meet you.
Great to see the show and tell item here. So tell me about Mary and why she's special.
I think, there are two things. One is that, what is it that we work so hard for? And it's a combination of everything that you went through in your life, and you say, you know what, when I have kids, I want to make sure they have this, they have that. And it's also not just making their life easier, but also you have a sense of duty as a father, that you are providing something for them to get on a higher level. And I've seen that throughout my my parents' life and my parents' life. They always push one generation to do much better, and not just financially, but overall as a human being, and carry the rest of the family along with them. So having this time it's Mary, but I do take my other kids also on business trips with me, kind of gives me that sense of purpose. Especially after I gave up drinking alcohol. I became very kid-friendly, and I only stick to places where kids can go. So that has been quite good. And the second aspect is also that it also gives the children a window into how your day is. Often a lot of people think business travel as such is, staying in 5-star hotels and nice restaurants and all these things. But the reality is a lot of it is just you alone in a hotel room, doing emails, doing calls. And I particularly don't enjoy it. And that's why I reach out to EO friends and YPO friends when I'm traveling. As in the night, I keep the TV on so that there is some noise. Although it's so quiet as well, it's very hard to fall asleep. So I think they get that window into how our lives are when we travel a lot for business.
Yeah.
So she's my show and tell for today. And
I love that.
Yeah.
It really describes that you're a father, a great father, and you're also so creative. Like, I never thought about bringing my kids along to business trips because it kind of serves so many purposes. One is you spend quality time. The other one is they get a taste of entrepreneurship. Is this something that you want your kids to follow you on that journey as an entrepreneur as well? Is that why you also want them to, kind of see the steps that you take?
I think the way, and I'm sure you share this point as well, the way the world is headed, everybody has to be an entrepreneur. And I often tell people that the highest paying job in the world is a sales job. And no matter what role you're in, you are doing a sales job. And you need to develop that skill. If you're planning to be an accountant or a lawyer or things like that, you still have to be a great salesman. Because if you're just doing the the bookkeeping aspect or the numbers aspect, if you don't add that element of entrepreneurship and creativity, your job is going to be replaced by a machine. And it's going to happen sooner than we think. I mean, just in our generation, I'm not trying to put your age on you, but in our generation, there used to be something called stenographers. Do you remember stenographers?
No.
Stenographers are people who can type. They're a fancy name, stenographers.
Okay.
And when you look at these historic buildings, like the Australia Post building and these bank buildings around us here in Sydney, floors and floors of these were filled with stenographers who just take shorthand and then type it all in. And that used to be a career, Now, nobody does that. You used to have courses to teach you how to type. I mean, right now, there were, a few years ago, there were courses that teach you how to use a computer, how to use Word, how to use, now kids pick it up automatically. You can check it on YouTube and things like that. So I think I try to tell my kids as well that you need to have that drive from within. And you need to find ways in which you are entrepreneurial and creative. Nobody can put that in you. The big thing that we need to look for is, we both are immigrant families, So our parents had that drive in them that we need to get there, we need to get a job, we need to make money, we need to buy a house, we need to put our kids through college. We all had that push. But as generations progress, that fire gets less and less because we have actually succeeded in making life more and more comfortable. So then that drive kind of, goes back. So we need to find a less, aggressive way of instilling those ethos into the kids.
Yeah. I love that. That is so important because that's what I'm going through right now as well, that kind of balancing between giving them enough and, because you didn't get that, but then at the same time not robbing them of the opportunity to grow. So growing up, what was it life like? Were your parents entrepreneurial? Share with me when you were a child, what was it like?
My mom didn't work, and it was a time when women were not encouraged to work. And my father was an engineer. He was a brilliant engineer. But I don't think he was entrepreneurial. He was a good salesman. But I think there is something more that you need to be a businessman. My father enjoyed the engineering aspects of it, finding solutions. But there's a shrewdness in business that you require. And you need to have the stomach to do those hard decisions and things like that. You can't be a people pleaser and be a good businessman.
When you say that, you mean like a true businessman makes a lot of money, and there's people that can make some money or be self-employed, make enough to do something that they enjoy. Is that the difference when you say like businessman?
Yeah. Also, I think when you mean a businessman, you have to also take decisions that are very unpopular. You have to. Sometimes these are, this could be about letting people go. This could be about cutting costs. This could be about, taking the. I'll give you an example. A lot of now, just after COVID, a lot of businessmen don't want to create this issue of telling people to come back to the office to work. Because they feel that they are going to get trashed in social media or this or that. But if you're a businessman and you see productivity going down, you see business results going down, you have to say, you know what, I don't care if people write nasty things about me online or in Glassdoor or Facebook or whatever. I have to do what is right for the business. And that's what I mean by a shrewd businessman. And that, I think, sets apart of being a shrewd businessman and not being one.
Yeah. So growing up, your parents were working parents.
Yeah. Parent. My mom basically looked after us and grew us. My father was an engineer who specialized in creating fiberglass products. So he had started a factory first in our home state of Kerala in India. And then he moved to Saudi Arabia and established a few factories there, working in partnership with the local Then 91 war, we moved from Saudi Arabia to the United Arab Emirates. that's where I did my schooling till grade 10. Then I moved back to India. So I think, and when you're not the shrewd of a businessman, when you have to look after a whole community and family and all these things, your business is one of the factors. So you're also not devoting full time into it. So the business existed on the side, but it was like running a mom and pop shop. That is also what I learned from my dad as well. If you want to grow your business, you have to put more than 100% in. Everything else becomes secondary. Otherwise, you'll have a mom and pop shop. And no business ever stays constant. No matter like how simple your business is.
Nothing is constant in life.
Nothing is constant. Yeah. Some people say, you know what, I'm going to have like 10 houses and then I'm going to get rent and that's it. I'm set. No. Taxes change. You have one or two bad tenants, COVID, all these things could happen and then you're again, so you have to constantly, so it's very important that you choose a business that you enjoy doing. And, my father enjoyed his, creating things. And I still go to Dubai and see things that he has made and put in there.
Wow.
But, and I said, he's not a shrewd businessman. So he never took patents for any of the things he made. And, these are things that I learned from that aspect. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2011. But I do take a lot of inspiration from him.
Yeah. So growing up, were your parents a Christian or how did you get into the path of Jesus Christ?
Yeah. So, I was fortunate that we're one of the oldest Christian communities in the world. We are known as the Syrian Christians or Nasranis. So basically, we are ethnically originally from the Middle East, but then there's been a lot of Indian mixture. And because the state of Kerala, especially the port of Kochi, had a long-standing spice capital, spice route. So there was a lot of trade between the Middle East and with Kerala. So if you ask about the first mosque in India, the first church in India, the first synagogue, it's all in Kerala because of the historic trade routes. So we've had our own form of Christianity. And, it was when the Portuguese came to India for the first time, they were shocked to see that there's a bunch of people there worshipping Christ and Christ is brown. So they had a cultural shock. It's like, what is this? What are you guys doing with all this incense and all these things, So there was and they wanted us to conform into the Latin form of Christianity, the Catholic form. But there was intense struggle. I think it went on for close to 100 years. By some accounts, they wiped out 70% of our population. Wow. But the good-looking ones survived. So we got lucky. And then towards the end, we signed an agreement in which we can keep our prayers, our language, this thing. But we have like two cardinals or one cardinal in Rome. And we become like Syrian Christian Catholics. It's, our language is a Syriac language. Our prayers and all are said. But it's, very ritualistic, very traditional. Sadly, my father knew the language. I don't know it. I don't think any of my kids know it as well. We all speak Malayalam. I think my kids might even forget that going forward. But the church was also a sense of identity. So, as children, we used to go to church every week minimum. In school, we used to almost do it every day.
Did you feel like you understood it or was it just such like a tradition that you just tick the box?
Yeah, it's not about ticking the box. It's like if you don't go to church, you don't do confession, you don't take part in any of these things, you're an outcast. Because, people struggle for us to keep our identity. So church, Christ, everything was about identity. There's nothing spiritual or anything. It's like, this is who we are. And because this is who we are, this is what we do. And, I used to be an altar boy. And this sense of identity is very strong. So even in, you go to Saudi Arabia, there's no churches, So we used to go to this American oil compound, Aramco. And we used to have our masses in the basketball court, So it's when you go to these extremes that your sense of identity comes over. And was there a spiritual awakening at that time? Things, even though I was an altar boy and had all the confirmation, communion, all these things. No, I mean, I was just using God as like buying a lottery ticket, Bad exams, just pray, hope I pass, get it done. So it was, and also like, I do this, God is not going to like it. So that's how it's been, this thing. So it's like the counterbalance to any radical thought that you might have, and also a soothing factor if you're overly worried about something. So it used to be a thing there.
Yeah. So, because I'm your friend and I caught up with you a few times, you mentioned that you kind of reconnected with God and now you're living your life a little bit different. We'd love to hear a little bit about your journey, in business. What were you like as the business owner a few years ago versus a business owner now, and your perspective of life, and maybe, your faith has something to do with that?
Yeah. So I think the awakening kind of came to me during the business, and also I was drinking quite heavily, and I wanted to go to the bottom of why am I doing this, And I saw a psychiatrist. I first saw a psychologist, but it's just too many questions.
Is there a difference?
Yes, there is a difference, a huge difference. A psychiatrist is a medical doctor who went through med school and decided for some reason that he wants to focus on, psychiatry. Psychologist is someone who studies psychology and then gets that's my understanding. The psychiatrist basically gave me a scientific reason why you are having this. Basically, he diagnosed me well. And he said, you have extreme anxiety, which leads to depression. Or he might have said the other way around. You have depression that leads you to anxiety. And a lot of people, and he gave me this medical term, like, there's an imbalance and there are some drugs you can take. And he prescribed me one that kind of counterbalanced the chemical, this thing. But then he said this medical solution is just a short term. It's because of the extreme anxiety that you're putting your chemicals, your body chemical makeup, your brain chemical makeup to that situation. So the natural way to do this is to address the root problems of what is going on. And he said, just stop drinking because you have this anxiety or depression. A lot of people tend to do alcohol or drugs and things like that because it gives them momentary relief. But then it's a vicious cycle. You have to have more and more and more to this thing, and then you start associating it with other things. So that was a wake-up call, and I just went out of it. And then I realized that a lot of this is because of anxiety is driven by fear. And it's fear of of failure, because you're like, if you're running a business, you're on a constant treadmill, right? So what happens if this goes wrong, that goes wrong, this goes wrong, that guy, and fear of people associated. It's like, like somebody has misled you or left your company and started a rival, and all these things are there. There's a fear of being disliked. Like, I let this person go, or, we had a fight with that competitor and, things like that. Then there is fear of, are you doing the right thing as a person, all these things. So all this fear pushes you into a state of both anxiety and depression. And I was searching for I don't want to drink. I don't want to have, take medication. What is it that, this thing? So I just one day, walked into the cathedral during lunchtime.
Oh, wow.
In Singapore is small, the cathedral is nearby. And I just sat there. And I read as I was leaving this thing that it was on the wall that, I don't remember the exact words now, it's this thing, but I just got a sense that it's just really like, basically a higher power telling me, I got your back, don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
And basically do not fear, And then I read somewhere else that it's the most repeated phrase in the Bible, do not fear. So I was like, so my analytical mind was saying that this is some, social issue that a lot of people have. And all that religion and, Christianity and Jesus, everybody's telling you is don't fear, And I started to volunteer my time and spend more time going for like Alcoholics Anonymous and things like that. And I used to hear a lot of people's stories. And then I realized how grateful I am because everybody has to find their bottom, to stop an addiction or this or that. I was very grateful, I didn't go to jail. I didn't, get into a fight or, all these things. And I still
Could
have
been worse. You could have blacked out and done something that you regret for the rest of your
I have
life.
blacked out, but I didn't do anything. Yeah. So I realized that, it's a blessing. I've just been given a course correction. And I said, this is a lesson. This is a lesson I want to share with other people. And things can go really wrong, but we don't know that yet. But it could happen. But there's no reason to fear it because life is all about facing these challenges, not about sitting back and worrying about them. And when I keep thinking, when I was, I just keep saying back to myself, don't fear.
God's got your back.
Yeah. And that really helps me. And, if I find myself in a church now and things like that, I just take an account of everything that's going on. And nobody's perfect. So every day you just have to like compound interest, do like 0.0001 better. And even if you mess up, don't worry, and then the other constant fear that a lot of people have, and I used to also have, is that you're like some pristine vessel, and once it's broken, that's it. You're a damaged good.
Wow.
You can never be this thing. So then I read about this, and I'm working on a book on this as well. Hopefully one day I'll finish it, but I want people to understand this concept, which, the Japanese have this art form called kintsugi. So kintsugi is the art form where you have like pottery and it's broken, but then they stick it back together with golden nacre, and the redone pottery or cutlery or whatever actually looks much better than the original one.
Wow.
So that kind of opened my thinking, and I saw that in the scriptures as well, is that you could be a blind man, you could be
Alcoholic,
or you could be like in the Bible, the woman with the wrong reputation and this and that, all that. But if you let God into your life and you rebuild yourself, you become something. So your normal life could have been just something very normal. Yeah. But because you went through this and then you rebuild yourself, it's going to end up. And if you didn't have that fall, you might not realize it then. But that's actually a blessing.
Yeah.
So when you fail, when you stumble, when you crack, when you do all these things, just tell yourself, this is a lesson. This is a stepping stone to something big. Because every night, if you have a roof over your head, if you've got enough to eat for that day, you've got one more day.
Yeah.
Something is going to change. So you have to have that, you have to free your mind and not burden yourself thinking that this is it. Everything is going to shit. I'm not going to, make it. Don't do self-negative talk.
Yeah.
Have faith.
I love that story because it just showed that no matter how big your business got and how successful in business you got, you still had all this fear. And it wasn't until you kind of connected to, God and to realize that everything will always work out that you have a different perspective in life now, right? Because a lot of times the people in business, they think, until I get there, I'm going to be happier. When I hit that KPI or, my revenue hits that goal, I'm going to be a happier person. What do you have to say to that? And can you relate to that part of your life when you were into growing a big business?
Yeah, it's a huge part of our childhood. Like we are told, oh, you become a doctor, you're set for life. You become a lawyer, you're set for life. You become a this, you're set for life. It's not a race. There's no, you have to find a way that you enjoy your present, because that is the only thing that is real. Your past is, a lot of people for the past is full of regrets, and the future is full of anxiety. And if you decide to live in both those areas, you're just not living in the present. You're not, living. So for me, I try to be grateful and grateful for the present. We're sitting in a nice studio, having this conversation, staying in a nice hotel, trying to spend quality time with my daughter. All these are blessings, and it's living in the present, and that's what matters.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your journey with Redhill. You grew it to, large size and with offices everywhere and people, how did you get there? How did you grow it? Because people here are listening and they're all aspiring entrepreneurs or are entrepreneurs. They would love some tips on growing a business as well.
The key element that I focused on starting a business is that you need to have a lot of drive. I didn't want it to be a small company from day one. If you look at the interviews I gave right from the beginning, I told them, I want to be in the top 250 PR companies in the world. I want to be this, I want to be that. And I started doing things.
And where did that come from? Was that just this inner calling, or or did you correlate it with something?
I think two major things. First one is that I was 35 when I started the business. And I knew that I have 10 years, 15 years. Because most men in my family, we are extremely good looking, but we die young. So I would give it like 10, 15 years. Yeah. And I don't want 10, 15 years that I'm running an agency that is,
Can you repeat that? You said you die young.
Yeah, most of the, like my father passed away when he was 61.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And is it to do with health? Like you just made it sound like you just know when your death is. I'm a bit.
I don't want to talk too much about dying. I might live longer, but it's something that we accepted that because of historic family and things like that. It's most, especially in our community, I think it's because of lifestyle as well, a lot, which is changing. That their lifestyles, the men tend to die younger and the women go on to live till they're like 90 or 100. And I also think stress is a major factor because they don't know how to deal with it. They would always keep it within themselves. They don't want to share it with their family that they're going through this thing. So those factors usually lead to early expiry. So the key aspect that I wanted to achieve was I didn't want it to be like a mom and pop shop where the needs of the family and things are increasing and it won't be able to satisfy if I'm running a small shop. I might as well work in a company. And I had good mentors, especially my mentor in PR, who helped me on that path. He's someone who did it as well. But it's like a video game. Every year you have a different level, and the challenges get bigger. The risks get bigger. The rewards may be there. So it's whether you want to step into the next one. And I have set myself a timeline where I want to stop doing active work by the time I'm 50, which is another 5 years. I want to plan a succession in the company and professionalize it, hopefully a listing, And so these are all plans that I have. but then obviously there's someone up there who knows much better. So if it is good for me, I've come to accept that it'll happen. But we shouldn't give that as a reason for laziness. It's something which my grandfather once shared, is that if you're planning something, aim for the stars. Because even if you fail, you land on the tallest coconut tree. So similarly, I try to aim and work hard for something, and I don't get disappointed if it doesn't happen. Because maybe it is not meant to be. If it is meant to me, I'll get it. And I know I'll get it because I've tried. If I don't get it, it's because something bad might have come from it, and I just dodged a bullet. And I look back in various situations in my life where it's been a blessing when I didn't get something that I really wanted, because that would have really messed up my life.
Yeah. I just love your perspective, and I wish I met you earlier, because I think, one of my goals when I first started my business was just to have a lifestyle business, just to make enough, and just enjoy. But
I have to say, us meeting was also really special, because I was in EO, I sent out, and you're one of the people who replied. And if you were the kind of person who would get upset easily, you wouldn't have met me, because I missed 3 train stations.
Yeah.
You made it a point to come to each of those things. And then we finally met at a McDonald's next to the airport, So, it's meant to be,
Yeah, definitely. But, what I've discovered is that I used to think setting big goals meant like you're greedy, you're not content, and you're just, I don't know, maybe trying too hard. But then I realized that I robbed myself from the ability to grow, to become a bigger person. Because if you set a bigger goal, that means you got to ask bigger and better questions. It means you got to get outside of your comfort zone and do bigger things, more brave things. And so I kind of feel like I wish I'd try harder, rather than at the same time, still not sacrificing my happiness or my time, but still that balance between, because, when you play safe, you're actually not getting outside of your comfort zone and growing as a person. Is that how you felt when you were going through and trying to achieve bigger things? Were you growing as a person even faster?
Yeah. So the thing is, you shouldn't have any guilt associated with dreaming big or making lots of money. I think if you're able to make a company or a system that produces immense value, and it goes beyond money. I mean, I'm someone who believes that after a few 100,000s or 1 million, money doesn't really have that impact. What are you going to buy with it? Because I wear the same shirt every day, and usually the same pair of jeans and these things. I don't spend too much on myself, but the rest you can do with money is just experiences. But then, if you're doing those experiences, with the wrong people or things like that, then it makes no sense. End of it, right? I would prioritize, if I make a lot of money, spending it on experiences with my kids, and that's what I try to do mostly. The only part when it's wrong, that if your intentions are wrong, which is also there in our religious studies as well. Because you could make a lot of money as a drug dealer, arms dealer, this, that, all that. But it's just going to be misery. What are you going to do with all that? And you've seen the history of all these guys in that kind of work. It's, it makes no sense. So if you make a lot of money, if you think that this lot of money and this company and everything is providing food to a lot of people, jobs for a lot of people, employment opportunities and all these things, then you should be happy about it. Because after a certain point, money is just points. It's like monopoly money. Because you're not, what are you going to do? My father worked really hard. He's built this humongous house, and my mom lives there alone. It's this thing. So what is the point? So I'm guessing. It's I don't want to sound as if you don't know it unless you have these kind of things. But I I would rather not build things huge and this thing, and basically you're just using that to signal or show off to other people. But you could be the kind that gives you happiness. But for me, that would attract the wrong kind of attention. I would be happy if anything that is comfortable. And I would picture myself, where would I be comfortable? I'll be comfortable in any city that has got electricity, good internet. I'll be happy in any house that has a flat TV, huge screen, a Netflix or this thing. So it's if your disappointment is less if your wants are less. So
yeah. And the other thing I like about you is you run a business with lots of people and everywhere, but you manage to still enjoy life. Like you travel and you're pursuing a law degree, you're doing all that. Like, what would you say to people that are like, example, my husband, yesterday we had a conversation. He was like, I'm really busy at work. I can't go on holidays with you. And I'm just saying it's a state of mind. It's like, you being able to permit yourself to get away from work because everything will be all right. Did you go through that before, or have you always been one of those type that are able to fit life in with work?
I used to be petrified that if I'm not there, something wrong is going to happen. I had to be on every email, every decision. And then I went to the other extreme where I wouldn't give this thing like, finance this, that. That's also bad. So you have to find your balance, the middle balance. So it's all boils down to also having the right kind of people in your organization. And once you've established that, then it gets easier. So it's basically creating those parameters that if it's this, I don't have to be involved. But if it is this, then I have to be involved. So you don't want to wake up one day and say that, your finance guy has done a loan agreement with the bank for $1 million without you even knowing. You don't want to know that half your company has left because HR manager decided to pursue this policy. So it's the nitty-gritty. But I think once your business goes to a certain point, and if you still think you have to be in office every day, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I think if you've taken your business to a certain level and put in the right places, your need to be in that office is only 2 or 3 hours in a day. And then spend the rest of the time meeting with your customers, suppliers, and things like that, based on whether it's existing clients, new opportunities, things like that. So you can farm it out like that.
Yeah, really good.
And I try to spend more time out of Singapore now because I think it lets my second level of leadership grow on their own without having too much of my involvement.
So looking back at your journey in business, what would you say the proudest moment in business for you would be?
In business, I would say that when we finally acquired another agency in Hong Kong, that was good. But, there are small wins that we have to celebrate as well. So there's wins like that we have in, our first major airline client or first major government client. These were wins that, as a small agency with this thing, it helps us step up. And we need to celebrate those things. And I think the biggest thing is yet to come. So that's what we should keep going every day.
And what's a memorable challenge that you've gone through that you're like, that still hurts when I think about it?
I think during our earlier days, as any small business would face, was cash flow. And no banks would give us a line of credit or anything because we are too small and we are in the creative industry. We have no assets, so who would? And we had this major ice cream brand who gave us this large purchase order, but none of the banks would discount it. It was crazy. I was just sitting with my co-founder at that time, and we were just sitting by the river in Singapore. And I was like, what are we going to do? But that day passed, and then it was the time of fintech, and then this fintech company called up and said, hey, we do this. I was like, wow, you do this? Can you do this? And they said, yeah, why not? So you just have to wait it out sometimes. Nothing comes immediately. Yeah.
And it's just really tested your resilience. Like now that you've gone through so many challenges, do you just feel with confidence that everything will work out?
See, at one level, I have this firm belief everything will work out. But I'm okay with everything not working out because some things will not work out. Maybe I will go through a tough phase, in the next few months, years, or whenever. But that's how life is. But there is no, fundamental survival risk that we should be overly concerned or worried about. And sometimes we spend too much time worrying about small things.
Yeah. So if Mary's sitting behind here and she's thinking about pursuing her first business, but she's scared, I don't know if I'm going to fail, what would you say to her?
I think she's already a businessman. I think in school she used to sell slime.
So, okay, something scary. It's like, getting out of her comfort zone. And a lot of our audience is always going to be coming across that kind of, how do I take that leap into pursuing that next step in my life? What would you say to that, to people who are...
I would say, especially to my kids, and Mary's old now, don't do things because it's a hype. Don't do things because it sounds cool. Business is about money. A lot of people I know is like, oh, I want to help the society and do this business. No, it's not gonna work like that. Your fundamental, the definition of business is to make money. So whatever you do, your cost should be less than what you're earning. You have to return a profit. Or you should convince enough investors to give you money to make that this thing. So I would say if it's a business, it has to be based on an opportunity and it's about timing. So you see, every 2 years or so, you'll see this cycle. Whether it is big data, then there is blockchain, there's crypto, and then there's AI, and then and everybody jumps on those waves, And then depending on which part of the wave you get into, it's not going to be this thing. So focus more on yourself and say that, look, these are my qualities, these are these are the people I know, this is the business I want to get into. And then there are your chances of surviving and growing a successful business is 2 or 1 out of 10. So don't be worried about failure. It's very common. Don't bet your entire house on it. Second, there are rely on science. There are things which are tough. Don't get emotionally involved. Everybody wants to set up a coffee shop. Everybody wants to set up a restaurant. Everybody wants to see. These are one of the toughest businesses to be in. It might sound simple, but don't do it. So look for something that you have a capability on, and you have experience, knowledge, and things on. If you're looking for a restaurant or a cafe or things like that, look into it carefully. Okay, is it a good location? How much footprint? Don't be afraid to ask the tough questions, because you have to do that like a shrewd businessman.
I love that. That's very different, because what you're saying is don't just take a leap. Take a leap first with informed decision and really getting the right advice and wisdom from someone like yourself. So that then, because sometimes people are just like, I'm going to follow my heart and I'm just going to start something.
Yeah. So what happens usually is people follow their heart, or they make an emotional decision. They have a gut feeling and all that.
Or copy someone else.
That is, or the worst case is that, I had a vision, I had this thing. For me, that is lazy decision making. If you are serious, you have to put in, your 100%. It is your duty. If I'm going to set up this business, I have to research, study hard, meet with the right people, do my research, and put a time limit on it. Some people like the idea of working on an idea. So they go on for years saying, I'm going to, I'm also guilty of that. There is a lot of things in my to-do list and this thing, whether it is book or doing a movie or a space launch site, all that, it's all there. And, but I owe it to my people who, are dependent on me and all that. I have to do it at the right time with the right resource. So do all your research. Don't be afraid to negotiate. Don't be afraid to push. Because if you're driven by emotion and your heart says it, and you also want to be accepted by others, you want an identity. A lot of people get into business because they want an identity. They want to say, oh, if that person looks at me, I want that person to tell another person, oh, have you seen him? He's a major businessman. He does that. You want that identity. Not like, nobody says to the other person, oh, that guy, his business made $300,000 profit last year. Nobody says that. They only say he's this, or he does that, or he's this businessman. And they want to have that identity of a successful business person. But, you and I run businesses, what is success? We are business people, but it's like seasons, you have all these challenges and things like that. So you have to do your business, you have to work your heart. And when you work hard and your heart and mind and things are in the right place, then, blessings and luck and all that shows up, because you're putting this thing, otherwise you're just buying a lottery ticket.
Well, thank you so much, Jacob. I just love your sensible advice and just very logical. It makes so much sense. And yeah, I think the audience will get a lot of value out of that, because I wanted them to, not just sit at church. And because a lot of times we have desires and we know we want to start a business, but I just felt like in the market we're lacking that, the knowledge and the experience that people can get so they can achieve that. So then they can, help their family and do whatever else that God's given them. So thank you for your time, and thank you for being here live with me.
Thank you so much. Take care.